Hey friends, it's Silly. I want to talk today a little bit about my experience working in retail and why I quit retail forever. um, so most of my jobs are actually in retail for the last however many years I've been employed by employers. Um, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in some other videos, but I actually worked at a coffee shop recently. I was the manager of a coffee shop, and I quit that job, and I've decided permanently that I don't want to work in retail ever again. So I came to this decision because through all the lessons that I've learned working in retail, good and bad, I learned that the one product that I can invest most of my time in and promote the strongest is myself. Don't get me wrong, I've learned a lot of good skills working in retail. Things like better communication skills, listening and speaking clearly, conflict resolution, working as a team is a really, really big one. And also just like leading people. I've learned a lot of good leadership skills and how to really take care of a team. I've also learned a lot of bad things working in retail. We've all seen the memes, Karens and all that kind of stuff, but it's just amazing to me how completely shitty somebody can be if their expectation doesn't match the reality. And that goes for customers and employees alike. It's something that isn't just a customer thing. It can happen to employees, it can happen to anyone. You, me, people who aren't in the store, people outside, it doesn't really matter. It's just something that can happen, and it's something that does happen, and it unfortunately does happen frequently. I think that companies also try to be friends with you. They have a lot of rhetoric about being united, being a family, being a really, really strong team, and at first that can seem pretty genuine, but what I've learned over time was that it actually is a technique to get you to work harder for them without actually paying you more money. There's like a huge buy-in to like really believing the mission of the company. We're selling this product, but really we're selling an experience, or we're doing this, but really we're becoming a pillar of the community. And that's something that's really common that happens throughout the companies that I've worked for or that I've seen on TV. You probably can list off a few off the top of your head that also have that kind of rhetoric, or that they try to encourage that kind of feel. And that's not just the customers, that's actually to employees as well. It's something that's really, really pushed onto the employees from the beginning at the lowest level. Now, just to be clear, I started at that level and I moved all the way up to a manager in a retail store. And that message is very, very strong at every single level. And really, it's just a way to buy in to get you to work harder for the company. And maybe that's not your experience. Maybe you really believe in the company you work for, or maybe you used to believe in a company you worked for and you completely agree. But I'm telling you from my experience that I felt a certain level of closeness working next to the same people every day. But I feel like the company trying to push a certain familiarity from the whole company itself was really, really fake. And I felt like I was almost being taken advantage of sometimes. And over time, as I leveled up in the company and as I got further and became a store manager, I was now the mouth of those messages to the people working at the bottom tier as just regular employees, and I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it when it was coming out of my own mouth. I didn't feel like the things I was saying were genuine. I understood the reason why. I get why we have to do certain things and make certain decisions, but I felt like ultimately I was lying to these people that I cared about, and that was really difficult for me. Some companies also give you benefits, and it's not just like health benefits, it's also benefits like mental health resources, discounts, other things. And I find that these other things are kind of a distraction from the real thing that I wanted as an employee, which was more money. The way it makes me feel is that if a company gives you health benefits and gives you other resources that you do need or you do find yourself using quite a bit, it makes you more dependent on that company. And that's a way for you to stay there longer and use these benefits that they probably get a discount on because of the size of the corporation without actually paying you more money. So they can pay you minimum wage and offer you a whole bunch of perks and not give you the financial freedom to find those perks by yourself or to not even need those perks. A company can offer you a discount because of a deal they have with another company instead of giving you the money to not really need that discount. That's another way that I feel like I was being taken advantage of. I was giving all this extra work because I didn't want to lose my benefits. I was working extra hard and extra hours because I didn't want to lose my privileges. Ultimately, I think that if I was making enough money, I wouldn't need those privileges. I would have the privilege of financial freedom. And the reality is that part of the reason why they don't pay employees, especially at the bottom level, that much is because ultimately they're expendable. And they may not talk like this quite often, but the reality is that they are. As a starting level employee, I got paid minimum wage And it was because the investment in me was low, because the expectation was that I would leave quickly or try to level up to make more money. And if I'm leveling up and if I'm moving up in the company, I'm making them more money. The reality is the people that are higher up make more money because they're more heavily invested and their time is invested in the company. And even at the managerial level, I felt like my time wasn't being respected. It was expected of me that my time was this company's time. I almost said the company. That would have been bad. I'm not going to say what company I used to work for. If you know, please don't say it. But yeah, I felt like my time wasn't really being respected. At a certain point when I became a manager, I was on a salary. So I was getting paid for 40 hours a week, and sometimes I'd be working for 60 hours a week or more. And I know a lot of managers that I worked with that worked 60 or more hours a week regularly and got paid a certain amount. And that's just the job. That's the way they know the job. And I think, honestly, that's not worth it. The money I was making at 40 hours a week was worth it only if I was working 40 hours a week. Realistically, I don't want to throw my life into a company that's not mine. I cannot be as invested as they expected me to be while paying me this much and me working this much. One of the things that I disliked about my most recent job was that all the rhetoric was really spun to be beneficial to the employee and to the customer, but mostly to the employee. It was always spun in a way like we had this opportunity to do this work, that we should be thankful that I have the opportunity to make a difference in my community. And I kind of got really tired of it. It almost made you feel guilty for not agreeing with it. And it almost felt like I was being manipulated to want to agree to do it because that's the right thing to do. It never really mattered what I was selling. It mattered the effect it was supposed to have on the community. And basically, if you didn't want to sell that product and you didn't want to deliver that experience, then you're letting down your community. And that's the message that I got over and over again, that I had to deliver over and over again as a manager. And I didn't like that. So here's the thing. The last straw for me as a manager was the handling of the whole pandemic situation from my company. At first, it started off pretty well. They closed all the stores. It was a really big thing. They even paid us to be closed, which I think other companies didn't do. A lot of companies didn't do that. And it was a really good move. It was honestly the right move. I felt taken care of. So eventually the decision was made to reopen all the stores, and I get it. It's really hard to keep paying people to not work and to keep a company afloat. So that made a lot of sense. It wasn't the ideal thing for everyone, obviously. And at first it went pretty well. They started paying all the employees a premium to actually be at work. So it was a little bit of incentive, sure, to come into work, but it was also like an understanding of the hazard that it is now being in a customer-facing environment. And they also had the option of not necessarily coming into work if they didn't feel safe. But what started to happen over time was things started to ramp up into regular procedures. And as far as I know, as of the recording of this video, there's still a lot of barriers from the government as to what normal is right now, and that's fine. But what really frustrated me was that we were constantly trying to be as ready as possible to serve as many customers as possible whenever, and doing all these things to invite customers back into the store felt like we're not helping slow down the pandemic. The company that I worked for actually started doing promotions and buy one get one free sales to bring customers back into the store to make money during a pandemic, and to me that was crazy. That was unfathomable. Like, I didn't understand the reasoning behind it. I heard the reasoning, don't get me wrong. The reasoning was that we needed to be able to make a profit so that we can actually pay people to live. And that I understand, because the company needs to make a profit to pay people. But we're in a pandemic. And whether you believe in the pandemic or not, whether you believe it's a serious or not, is not the point. The point is that the people that were showing up to work, that were now relying on work because they had nothing else, and they were in the store, in protective equipment, were scared. And ultimately they didn't want to be there. And at this point, the option of not coming to work was taken off the table. The conversations I started to have were, hey, you need to come back to work or you need to quit. And that felt shitty. that hurt me so much. To do that as a leader, to tell somebody that I know you don't feel safe in the store, I'm going to try to make you feel as safe as possible, but if you don't come back, you have to quit. That was trash. That was utter garbage. And as a leader, and as I'm sure my peers as leaders also felt, it was not a comfortable thing to do. It was just something that we had to do, and it didn't feel good. And it's so hard to be genuine, to say, hey, yeah, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. We're going to take these and these measures. We have all these precautions. And yeah, sure, we had precautions in place, but I honestly don't know if it was worth the risk. Don't get me wrong. I know that when you sign up to work at a job, you're paid to perform a task. But I think that the option of not working and not getting paid shouldn't have been taken off the table. It really undercut the whole feeling of family and unity that the company prides itself upon. It kind of just feels like, yeah, we'll treat you like family, we'll care about you only if you're willing to make us money. And ultimately, that's the truth. And that's what all companies do. They might do it to different extents, but I haven't found a large corporation that doesn't do that. So realistically, if I'm ever going to work in retail again, it has to be my own store. It has to be a company that I started from scratch. It has to be a shop that my sweat goes into it more than anyone else's. I don't think I could ever be comfortable and live with myself making decisions that I don't agree with. I don't ever want to be in that position again. I have to be able to lead through my morality and my own judgments, and I didn't have that freedom. Not even as a store manager. I don't think I'll ever be satisfied working for anyone else. And I don't think I'll ever be satisfied forming my life around somebody else's dream. Thanks for watching.